Hey guys, glad you could make it. Tonight, we're journeying back to the dawn of myth, to the cloud-shrouded peaks of Mount Olympus and the desolate crags of the Caucasus Mountains. We're here to explore one of the most enduring and most brutal stories from Greek mythology, the eternal punishment of the Titan Prometheus. We often hear the tale as a heroic act of rebellion, the champion who stole fire for humanity, suffering nobly for his gift. But the brutal reality, as the ancient Greeks perceived it, was a terrifying cautionary tale about the absolute, terrifying power of the gods. It was a story of agonizing, unending torment, a divine sentence designed not just to punish one titan, but to serve as a gruesome, eternal warning against defying the cosmic order established by Zeus. If these slow explorations into the darker, more complex layers of myth and history help you find a moment of quiet contemplation in your own world, a simple like or a subscribe is always a wonderful and deeply appreciated gesture. And as our community continues to gather, it's always fascinating to see who is joining us from all corners of the globe. So please feel free to share where you're listening from as you settle in for the night. Alright, it's time to let the modern world fade into mist, like a forgotten dream. Find that perfect, comfortable position, let your body feel completely at ease, and take a slow, deep breath in, holding it gently, and then letting it all flow out. Good. We stand in a time before time, when the gods are young and humanity is new. You are Prometheus, son of Iapetus, a titan of foresight and cunning, and you have a dangerous affection for the creatures of clay. You watch them from afar, these fledgling humans you helped shape, or perhaps merely observed being born from the earth. They huddle in caves, shivering in the cold darkness, their lives short, brutal and filled with fear. They lack the spark, the vital energy that separates the beasts from the beings capable of thought, of art, of progress. You see their potential, a faint glimmer in their frightened eyes, but they are trapped in a primitive state, lacking the one tool that could elevate them, the tool the jealous king of the gods, Zeus, has deliberately withheld. Fire. You understand the risks. Zeus, your cousin, the son of the Titan you once fought alongside, now rules Olympus with an iron fist. He secured his power through a brutal war against your own kind, casting many of your brethren into the black abyss of Tartarus. He is powerful, he is paranoid, and he views humanity as little more than insignificant playthings, certainly not worthy of the divine power contained within flame. To defy him is to invite a wrath that knows no bounds, no mercy. Yet your foresight, your very name means forethought, compels you. You see not just the shivering present of humanity, but their potential future, cities, arts, philosophy, all unlocked by the simple gift of controlled flame. You make your decision. It is an act of profound rebellion, disguised as a simple errand. You ascend to the heights of Mount Olympus, the dazzling cloud-wrapped home of the gods. You walk through the golden halls, your face a mask of calm indifference, nodding respectfully to the Olympians you pass. Your destination is the workshop of Hephaestus, the smith god, where the sacred fire, stolen from the sun itself, burns eternally in his forge. Or perhaps, some say, you journey even higher to the chariot of Helios, the sun god, as it blazes across the sky. The details are shrouded in the mist of myth, but the act itself is clear. You carry a giant fennel stalk, its pith dry and hollow. With a steady hand, you touch the tip of the stalk to the divine flame. A tiny spark catches. You carefully shield the nascent ember within the hollow stalk, concealing the stolen power. You turn, your heart pounding a silent drum against your ribs, and begin your descent, carrying a seed of cosmic revolution hidden in plain sight. It's the ultimate act of corporate espionage, stealing the divine equivalent of the secret formula, and your getaway vehicle is a vegetable. You return to the world of mortals. You find a group of humans huddled together for warmth against a cold wind, their faces etched with hardship. You reveal the fennel stalk. You gently blow on the ember within, coaxing it to life. A tiny flame flickers, small and uncertain at first, then growing stronger, steadier. You feed it with dry leaves, then twigs, then larger branches. The humans watch, their eyes wide with a mixture of fear and wonder. They have seen fire before, the terrifying, destructive fire of lightning strikes. But this is different. This is a fire they can control. You show them how to feed it, how to keep it alive. You show them how its warmth can push back the chilling darkness, how its light can reveal the hidden corners of their caves. You demonstrate how its heat can cook their food, making it safer and more nourishing. You reveal how it can harden the tips of their wooden spears, turning them into more effective tools for hunting. It is more than just a flame. It is knowledge. It is power. It is the beginning of civilization itself. You see the spark you carried down from Olympus ignite a corresponding spark in their eyes. Hope, understanding, ambition. The gift spreads like wildfire. From village to village, the knowledge is passed on. Hearths are lit, the night is pushed back, humanity begins to emerge from its infancy. They begin to forge metal, to develop crafts, to build communities. They begin to look upwards, not just in fear of the gods, but with a newfound sense of their own potential. You watch this transformation with a sense of quiet satisfaction, a feeling akin to pride. You have given them the tool they needed to shape their own destiny. But your satisfaction is short-lived. High on Olympus, the unmistakable scent of cooking meat, rising from 1,000 mortal hearths, reaches the nostrils of Zeus. He looks down. He sees the twinkling lights of human settlements scattered across the once dark earth. He sees humanity, his insignificant playthings, wielding the power he had forbidden them. And his reaction is not one of fatherly pride. It is one of cold, calculating fury. The sky darkens above your head. You feel a sudden, unnatural chill in the air, a palpable sense of divine displeasure that settles over the world like a shroud. The king of the gods is angry, and you, Prometheus, are the sole focus of his wrath. His first act of vengeance, however, is not directed at you, but at the recipients of your gift. Zeus convenes the gods. His voice, you imagine hearing it echo down the mountains, is low and dangerous. Humanity has fire? Very well. He will send them another gift, a gift so beautiful, so alluring, that they will welcome it with open arms. A gift designed to bring not warmth, but misery. He commissions Hephaestus, the master craftsman, to sculpt a figure from clay, a woman of breathtaking form. Athena is tasked with clothing her in shimmering robes and teaching her the delicate arts of weaving. Aphrodite bestows upon her an irresistible beauty and charm, and Hermes, the trickster god, is instructed to give her a cunning, deceitful mind and a shameless heart. She is perfect. She is irresistible. She is a trap. Zeus names her Pandora, the all-gifted. She is presented not to you. You are too clever, too full of foresight to fall for such an obvious ploy, but to your slow-witted, impulsive brother, Epimetheus, whose name means afterthought. You had warned him, explicitly, never to accept any gift from Zeus, but Epimetheus is dazzled by Pandora's beauty. enchanted by her grace. He ignores your warning. He welcomes her into his home, and with her, Pandora brings a dowry from Zeus. Not gold or jewels, but a single sealed container, sometimes described as a box, sometimes as a large pithos jar. She's been given strict instructions never to open it, but Zeus and Hermes have ensured she also possesses a fatal burning curiosity. The inevitable happens. Left alone, Pandora cannot resist the temptation. Her mind, crafted by Hermes, whispers doubts and possibilities. What treasure could be hidden inside? What secret knowledge? Her fingers tremble as she undoes the latch or lifts the heavy lid. For a moment, nothing happens. Then a dark, invisible cloud seems to pour from the container. It is not treasure. It is all the evils and miseries that Zeus had locked away. Disease, old age, famine, war, greed, envy, pain. They swarm out into the world, unseen spirits released from their prison, spreading like a plague among the unsuspecting human race. Pandora, horrified, slams the lid shut, but it is too late. All the evils have escaped. Only one thing remains trapped inside, fluttering weakly at the bottom of the container. Elpis, the spirit of hope. Perhaps Zeus allowed hope to remain as a final, cruel twist, a way to ensure that humanity, now afflicted with endless suffering, would continue to endure, rather than succumbing to despair. You watch from afar as this new wave of suffering washes over the world you tried to help. You see disease wither limbs, conflict turn brother against brother, despair cloud the eyes that had so recently begun to shine with the fire's light. Zeus's first revenge is complete. He has punished humanity for accepting your gift. Now, it is your turn. Your crime, however, was not just the theft of fire. You committed another, perhaps even greater, offense against Zeus's authority. It happened years earlier at Mecone, during a great feast intended to settle the distribution of sacrifices between gods and mortals. You were chosen to be the arbiter, the one to divide the sacrificial ox, and here your cunning, your desire to favour humanity, led you to an act of cosmic trickery. You butchered the great ox. Then you prepared two offerings. In one pile you placed all the best cuts of meat, the succulent flesh and rich organs, but you cunningly hid this desirable portion beneath the ox's stomach and intestines, the least appealing parts. In the second pile you gathered all the bones, stripped clean of any meat, but you artfully arranged them and concealed them beneath a thick, glistening layer of white fat. You then presented the two bundles to Zeus, inviting him, with a show of false humility, to choose which portion the gods would henceforth receive from mortal sacrifices. Zeus, the all-knowing king of the gods, allowed himself to be deceived, or perhaps he saw through your trick, chose to play along, already planning his retribution. He reached out and chose the bundle covered in the rich, white fat. He lifted the layer of fat and saw only bones. His face, you imagined, darkened like a thunderhead. He realized he had been tricked into choosing the inedible portion, condemning the gods forevermore to receive only the smoke and the bones from mortal sacrifices, while humanity kept the nourishing meat for themselves. His anger at this deception was immense. It was this act, some say, that first prompted him to withhold fire from humanity as punishment. Your later theft of fire was thus a direct escalation, a doubling down on your defiance. You had not only tricked the king of the gods, you had then circumvented his punishment. You had consistently and publicly challenged his supreme authority, his divine right to control the fate of both mortals and immortals. This could not stand. Your cleverness had sealed your doom. You had played a game of wits with the master of the universe, and you are about to learn the price of losing. The summons arrives not as a polite request, but as an irresistible force. Two figures appear before you, embodiments of Zeus's implacable will. They are Kratos, raw strength personified, and Bia, sheer force. They are not gods you can reason with, not beings you can trick. They are pure, relentless power. There are no charges read, no trial held. Your guilt is self-evident. Your sentence has already been passed in the divine court of Zeus's mind. Your crime is hubris, defiance, an unforgivable insult to the established order. You do not resist. Your foresight tells you the futility of struggle. You allow Kratos and Bia to bind your hands, though no physical chain could truly hold a titan against his will. Your submission is perhaps your final act of subtle defiance, a demonstration that you go to your fate willingly, aware of the consequences. You are led away from the world you sought to nurture, away from the flickering hearths of humanity. Your journey is long, arduous, and silent. Your captors do not speak. Their presence alone is a constant crushing weight. You travel for days, perhaps weeks, moving ever eastward towards the edge of the known world. You cross sun-scorched plains, traverse dark forests, and finally begin to ascend into a range of vast, forbidding mountains. The air grows thin and cold. The landscape becomes a brutal, broken wasteland of rock and ice. This is the Caucasus, the rugged spine of the world, a place deemed remote even by the standards of the gods. Your captors lead you up a treacherous path, higher and higher, towards a desolate, wind-swept peak that pierces the clouds. Waiting for you there is another figure. It is Hephaestus, the smith god, the very deity whose fire you stole. He carries heavy chains, forged in the divine fires of his volcanic workshop, chains of adamantine, an unbreakable celestial metal. Hephaestus is reluctant. He feels a kinship with you. Another craftsman, another being slightly outside the Olympian mainstream. He argues with Kratos, lamenting this terrible duty, but Kratos is unmoved. Your pity is useless, he snarls. The father's command must be obeyed. Hephaestus sighs, the sound like the bellows of his forge. He raises his hammer. The final act of your punishment is about to begin. You are forced against the cold, unyielding rock face of the mountain peak. The wind howls around you, tearing at your clothes, chilling you to the bone. Below you, the world stretches out, a vast, indifferent panorama. Hephaestus begins his grim work. With heavy, reluctant blows of his hammer, he drives great adamantine stakes through the links of the chains, pinning you to the stone. He wraps chains around your wrists, your ankles, your waist. Each clang of his hammer echoes in the vast emptiness, a sound of finality, of absolute, inescapable imprisonment. Kratos and Bia supervise, their faces impassive, ensuring the bonds are secure, that there is no possibility of escape. Hephaestus finishes his work. He looks at you, his eyes filled with a craftsman's sorrow for a task perfectly executed, yet utterly abhorrent. Your foresight did not see this, Prometheus, he perhaps murmurs, before turning away. Kratos delivers a final, parting insult. Now, mock the gods from here, if you can. See if your precious mortals can help you now. They leave. You are alone, pinned against the rock, suspended between earth and sky. The physical pain of the binding is immense, but it is nothing compared to the crushing weight of your sentence. You are immortal. You cannot die. This is not an execution. It is eternal torment. You look out at the world you sought to help, now impossibly distant. You feel the cold seep into your bones, a cold that seems to emanate not just from the rock and ice, but from the very heart of the cosmos. You hang there, silent, enduring. The sun beats down on you by day, its warmth a mockery. The freezing wind numbs you by night. The clouds wreath you in mist, then part to reveal the indifferent stars. Time loses all meaning. Days blur into weeks, weeks into months, months into years. Your body, immortal, does not weaken, but the agony is constant. Yet the physical restraint is only the beginning of Zeus's terrible ingenuity. The true horror is yet to come. You wait, knowing, with your terrible foresight, what creature is about to arrive, sent by the king of the gods to complete your torture. Then, one dawn, you hear it, a sound that cuts through the howling wind, the sharp, piercing cry of a great bird of prey. You look up. Circling high above you, silhouetted against the pale morning sky, is a monstrous eagle. It is no ordinary bird. It is a creature of divine origin, some say born of Typhon and Echidna, parents of monsters. Its wingspan blots out the sun. Its eyes are like chips of obsidian, fixed upon you. Its talons, sharp as razors, flex in anticipation. This is Zeus's messenger, his instrument of eternal vengeance. The eagle descends, not in a swift dive, but in a slow, deliberate spiral, savouring the moment. It lands upon the rocks near you, its sheer size terrifying. It fixes you with its cold, predatory gaze. There is no escape. You are chained, immobile. The eagle hops closer. You brace yourself, your immortal body tensing against the inevitable. You anticipate the sharp, tearing sensation, the violation that is worse than any simple pain. The great bird lowers its head. Its shadow falls over you. The aftermath is a state of profound violation and exhaustion. You hang limp against your chains, your body feeling strangely light, hollowed out. The eagle, its grim work done for the day, stands for a moment on the blood-stained rock, its beak crimson. It looks at you, perhaps with a flicker of something that might be satisfaction in its cold eyes. Then, with a powerful beat of its enormous wings, it launches itself back into the sky, its departing cry echoing down the desolate mountainside. You are left alone once more, in the wind, under the vast, uncaring sky. But your ordeal is not over. It is merely paused. As dusk begins to settle, a strange, miraculous process begins. Your immortal body, gifted or cursed by your Titan heritage, starts to heal. The tissues begin to regenerate, knitting themselves back together with supernatural speed. By the time the moon rises, you are whole again, your body unmarked, seemingly untouched. But you are not untouched. The memory of the violation remains. And worse, the knowledge, the absolute certainty that tomorrow at dawn the eagle will return. This is the true genius of Zeus's punishment. It is not the pain itself, but its endless, inescapable repetition. It is a cycle of torment and renewal designed to break not just your body, but your spirit. Each dawn brings not hope, but the certainty of renewed agony. It is a psychological torture of unimaginable cruelty. Centuries pass, or perhaps millennia. Time ceases to have meaning in your eternal present tense of suffering. You have become a fixture of the landscape, a monument to divine wrath. Your chains are encrusted with frost, your body weathered by 1,000 years of wind and rain. Yet you endure. Your spirit, though battered, remains unbroken. Your defiance, the very act that brought you here, becomes your only solace. You are Prometheus, the forethinker, the one who dared to challenge the gods. And in your suffering, you become a symbol, a beacon for the very mortals you sought to elevate. Visitors come, the gods and goddesses of Olympus, perhaps, flying past on their celestial errands, avert their eyes, unwilling to witness Zeus's ongoing fury, or perhaps feeling a flicker of guilty sympathy. The oceanids, gentle nymphs of the sea, rise from the misty depths to weep at your plight, their tears mingling with the cold rain. Oceanus himself, ancient god of the river that encircles the world, comes to offer counsel, urging you to submit, to apologize to Zeus, to end your suffering. But you refuse. Your pride, commitment to your cause, will not allow it. One day, a mortal woman stumbles upon your desolate peak. It is Io, priestess of Hera, transformed into a white heifer by Zeus to hide her from his jealous wife, and now pursued across the world by a relentless gadfly. She sees your suffering, and you, with your foresight, tell her of her own long, tormented journey that lies ahead, but also of the eventual descendant she will bear, a great hero who will finally bring your own ordeal to an end. It is a small comfort, a distant glimmer of hope in your endless night. Your punishment becomes a story, a myth whispered around human hearths, the very hearths lit by the fire you gave them. You become a symbol of defiance against tyranny, of the suffering endured for the sake of knowledge and progress. You are the archetypal tortured artist, the lonely champion of humanity. Your torment elevates you. Zeus intended to make you an example of divine power, but you have become an example of defiant endurance. You hang on the rock, not just as a criminal, but as a martyr. Then, after an age, a figure appears on the path below. A man of immense stature, carrying a great club and wearing the skin of a lion. It is Heracles, the son of Zeus himself, performing his legendary labours. He looks up. He sees you chained to the rock. He sees the great eagle descending for its daily, gruesome meal. Heracles, a hero known for his strength, but also for his compassion, is moved by your plight. He draws his great bow. He waits. As the eagle swoops down towards you, an arrow, swift and true, flies from Heracles' bow. The eagle lets out a final startled cry and tumbles from the sky, pierced through the heart. The instrument of your eternal torture is destroyed. Heracles then climbs the treacherous rock face. He stands before you, immortal hero in the presence of an immortal titan. With his immense strength, he shatters the adamantine chains that have held you for millennia. You are free. The pain is gone. The crushing weight of eternal punishment is lifted. You slowly, stiffly move your limbs for the first time in an age. You look at the hero, this descendant of the woman Io, to whom you offered comfort so long ago. You perhaps offer a quiet word of thanks. Your ordeal is finally over. The foresight that showed you centuries of suffering has been fulfilled. Zeus, it is said, allows this release. Perhaps because Heracles is his favourite son. Perhaps because even the king of the gods recognizes that the punishment, however just in his eyes, has served its purpose. Or perhaps because your suffering has elevated you beyond his reach. The punishment of Prometheus is more than just a gruesome myth. It is a profound exploration of power, knowledge, sacrifice, and the complex, often terrifying, relationship between humanity and the divine in the Greek imagination. Prometheus's act of giving fire was an act of elevating humanity, of giving them the potential to become something more than fearful creatures of the dark. But this gift came at a terrible cost, both to humanity, through the release of evils by Pandora, and to Prometheus himself. His eternal torment in the Caucasus Mountains serves as a chilling reminder of the consequences of hubris, of defying the established order. Zeus's power is absolute, his vengeance terrifyingly creative and unending. Yet Prometheus's endurance, his refusal to break, transforms him from a mere criminal into a symbol of resistance, a martyr for human progress. He is the Titan who suffered, so that mortals might have warmth, light, and the chance to build a civilization. The story forces us to confront uncomfortable questions. Is knowledge worth the suffering it can cause? Is defiance against absolute power ever justified, even if the consequences are horrific? The Greeks offered no easy answers. Their myths are complex, contradictory, reflecting a worldview where the gods are both providers and tormentors, where progress is intertwined with peril. Prometheus remains chained not just to a rock in mythology, but to the very heart of these enduring human questions. His fire burns in our hearths, our engines, our technologies. But the shadow of the eagle, the memory of the price he paid, still lingers in the cold, high places of our imagination. The life of a potter in ancient Athens. We're journeying back to the golden age of Greece, to the bustling democratic city of Athens. We're not heading to the Acropolis to debate philosophy, nor to the assembly to argue politics. Instead, we're going down to the smoky, dusty potter's quarter, the Kerameikos, to look at the life of one of the city's most essential and perhaps most underappreciated craftsmen, the Athenian potter. If you've stayed with me through this first story, I'm glad it's brought you a moment of peace. If you'd like to help this little community of ours keep growing, a simple like or subscribe is always appreciated. And I'd still love to know where you're listening from. It's been wonderful seeing voices from all over the world join in. We see the magnificent painted vases in museums depicting gods and heroes, elegant scenes of daily life, and we imagine the life of the creator as one of pure artistic inspiration, a respected master shaping beauty from clay. But the brutal reality is that being a potter in ancient Athens was a physically demanding, often precarious, and intensely competitive blue-collar trade. It was a life defined by endless hours of back-breaking labour, preparing the clay, the repetitive strain of the wheel, the toxic fumes of the kiln, and the constant pressure to produce wares that could compete in a saturated market. The year is 440 BC. Athens is at the height of its power and cultural influence under Pericles. You are Nikos, a potter, and your day starts with dirt. Your world smells of damp earth, wood smoke, and something sharp and metallic. You live and work in the Kerameikos district, just northwest of the main city walls, named after Keramos, the patron hero of pottery, or maybe just after the clay itself. This area is a noisy, bustling industrial zone, home not just to potters, but also to blacksmiths, tanners, and sculptors. Your workshop, the ergasterion, is a modest structure, likely built of sun-dried mud brick with a simple tiled roof. It opens onto a small courtyard, shared perhaps with other craftsmen. It is not a serene artist's studio. It is a factory floor, covered in a fine layer of reddish-brown dust that gets into everything. Your day begins before dawn, not with a prayer to Athena, but with a trip to the clay pits. The secret to Athens' dominance in the pottery world lies beneath your feet. The rich, iron-heavy clay deposits found just outside the city, particularly near Cape Collius. You, or more likely your hired labourers or slaves, head out with wicker baskets and heavy bronze picks. The work is pure brute force. You dig the dense, reddish clay from the earth, hacking it out in great, heavy chunks. It's damp, sticky, and weighs a ton. You load the baskets, hoist them onto your shoulders or onto the back of a complaining donkey, and begin the long, slow trek back to the workshop. This raw clay is unusable as it is. It's filled with impurities, pebbles, roots, sand, limestone particles. These inclusions are not just aesthetically displeasing, they are dangerous. A tiny piece of limestone, calcite, trapped in the clay, can absorb moisture, expand during firing, and cause the finished pot to crack or even explode in the kiln. Preparing the clay is therefore not just a matter of making it workable. It's a critical step in quality control, a tedious but essential process of purification. Back in your courtyard, the real work begins. The great lumps of raw clay are dumped onto a paved area. Water is added. And then you wait. The clay must soak, slake down, becoming a thick, soupy slurry. You then begin the laborious process of levitation. You stir the slurry vigorously, allowing the heavier impurities like sand and pebbles to sink to the bottom. You then carefully skim off the finer clay particles suspended in the water and pour this slip into a series of settling tanks. Large, shallow basins dug into the courtyard floor. Here, over several days, the fine clay particles slowly settle, while excess water evaporates under the attic sun or is carefully drained away. It's a slow, natural process of refinement using gravity and patience as your primary tools. You're essentially panning for ceramic gold, separating the treasure from the dross, one bucket of muddy water at a time. It's not exactly glamorous, but without this perfect, purified clay, all the artistic skill in Athens is worthless. The clay, now settled into a thick plastic state at the bottom of the tanks, must be dug out and brought into the workshop. But it is still not ready. It needs to achieve the perfect consistency and homogeneity for throwing on the wheel. This requires another round of intense physical labour, kneading and wedging. You take a large lump of the damp clay, perhaps 50 pounds worth, onto a sturdy wooden bench dusted with fine sand or ash to prevent sticking. And you begin to knead. You use the heels of your hands, pushing down and away, folding the clay over on itself, again and again. Your shoulders and back muscles scream in protest. This is not the gentle kneading of a baker preparing dough. This is a full-body workout against a heavy, resistant mass. The goal is twofold. First, to remove any trapped air bubbles. An air bubble, expanding in the heat of the kiln, is another potential source of disaster, capable of shattering your pot. Second, you are aligning the microscopic plate-like particles of the clay, making the mass uniform in consistency, giving it the plasticity it needs to be shaped on the wheel. You are imposing order on the chaotic structure of the raw earth. After kneading comes wedging. You repeatedly throw the lump of clay down hard onto the bench, cutting it in half with a wire and slamming one half on top of the other. Thump, cut, slam. Thump, cut, slam. The rhythm is hypnotic, exhausting. Each cut reveals the internal structure of the clay, showing if any air pockets or inconsistencies remain. You are looking for a perfectly smooth, uniform texture, a sign that the clay is ready. This process can take hours. If you are lucky, you have apprentices or slaves who perform this grueling task under your supervision. But the final judgment of the clay's readiness, that rests with you, the master potter. You feel the clay in your hands. It should be cool, smooth, yielding but not sticky, capable of holding its shape but plastic enough to respond to the slightest pressure. It is a tactile knowledge, learned through years of experience. You are not just a craftsman, you are a connoisseur of mud. You know its moods, its potential, its hidden flaws. Preparing the clay is 90% of the work, and arguably the most important part. It is the foundation upon which everything else rests. It's the least artistic, most physically demanding, and utterly essential first act in the creation of an Athenian masterpiece. You wipe the sweat from your brow, your arms caked in drying clay. The raw material is finally ready. Now, the magic can begin. You take a perfectly wedged ball of clay, perhaps 10 pounds, and slam it down onto the centre of the potter's wheel. Your wheel is not the electric, effortlessly spinning device of the modern world. It is a heavy, two-part contraption. A large, heavy flywheel of stone or terracotta sits at the base, connected by a short axle to a smaller, flat wheel head on top. You sit on a low bench, and you power the wheel with your feet, kicking the heavy flywheel to get it spinning, then maintaining its momentum with rhythmic kicks. It requires coordination, strength, and stamina. Your left leg is constantly working, providing the power, while your hands are engaged in the delicate art of shaping. With the wheel spinning at a steady speed, you wet your hands in a basin of water beside you. You brace your arms against your knees for stability, and you begin to center the clay. This is the first crucial battle. You press down and in on the spinning lump, feeling its resistance, coaxing it, forcing it into a perfectly symmetrical cone, absolutely centered on the wheel head. If the clay is even slightly off-center, the centrifugal force will tear the pot apart as it grows taller. It takes immense strength and sensitivity. You are wrestling with the raw earth, imposing your will upon it through the spinning motion. Once the clay is centered, you open the form. You press your thumbs down into the center of the spinning cone, creating a hollow, then slowly pull outwards, forming the base of the vessel. Now, the pot begins to grow. Using wet hands, one inside and one outside the spinning wall, you begin to pull the clay upwards. It is a slow, mesmerizing dance between your hands, the clay, and the wheel. The slightest tremor, the slightest uneven pressure can cause the wall to collapse into a sad, slumping ruin. You feel the clay respond, thinning, rising, taking shape under your touch. You are not just making a pot, you are making a specific shape, fulfilling a specific function. Is it an amphora, the tall, two-handled jar for storing wine or oil? A kylix, the wide, shallow cup for drinking wine at a symposium? A crater, the large, open-mouthed bowl for mixing wine and water? Each shape has its own traditional proportions, its own technical challenges. You might use a simple wooden rib, or a piece of pottery, a shard, to smooth the walls, to refine the curve. You might use calipers to check the diameter. You are working within a highly standardized system. Innovation is rare and usually subtle. Your goal is perfection within the established forms. You are a manufacturer as much as an artist, producing the essential containers of daily life and ritual. After maybe 20 minutes of intense concentration, the basic form is complete. You take a wire and cut the finished pot cleanly from the wheelhead, lifting it carefully onto a wooden board to dry. Then, you slap another ball of clay onto the wheel. You have dozens more to make before the day is out. Once the pots have dried to a leather-hard state, firm enough to handle but still soft enough to carve, the next stage begins. For many simpler utilitarian wares, this might just involve attaching handles, smoothing the surface, or adding a simple slip coating. But for the high-end decorated pottery for which Athens is famous, this is when the painters take over. Your workshop might have its own dedicated painters, or you might send your pots out to specialist decorating workshops. You yourself might be both potter and painter, a master of both crafts. Let's assume you are preparing a large crater for the symposium market, destined for export perhaps. This requires the height of Athenian artistry, figure painting. You are working in the dominant style of the mid-5th century BC red figure painting. This technique, developed about a century earlier, has largely replaced the older black figure style. It allows for greater detail and realism. The process begins with sketching. Using a piece of charcoal or a blunt stylus, you lightly sketch the outline of your chosen scene directly onto the curved surface of the leather hardpot. What scene will it be? Perhaps a scene from mythology, Heracles battling the Nemean lion. Perhaps a scene from daily life, athletes training in the gymnasium. Or perhaps a scene from a symposium, men reclining on couches, drinking wine, listening to music. You choose a mythological scene, maybe Dionysus, the god of wine, reclining with his satyrs and maenads. Once the sketch is complete, the true magic of Red Figure begins. You take a fine brush, likely made from animal hair, and dip it into a specially prepared, ultra-fine clay slip. This slip, made from the same Attic clay, but carefully refined and mixed with potash, is the key to the whole technique. You use this slip not to paint the figures themselves, but to paint around them. You meticulously outline the figures you sketched, and then you fill in the entire background with the black slip. It's like creating a stencil in reverse. The figures remain the reddish-orange colour of the underlying clay, while the background will turn a glossy black during firing. This requires incredible precision. Your brush control must be flawless. A single slip of the hand and a character might gain an unwanted third arm, or Dionysus's regal profile might suddenly acquire a bulbous nose. There is no easy way to erase a mistake on leather-hard clay. Then, using an even finer brush, you begin to paint the internal details of the figures, the lines of muscles, the folds of drapery, facial features, patterns on clothing, using diluted washes of the same clay slip, or sometimes added colours like white or purple made from other mineral pigments. This allows for a level of detail and naturalism that was impossible with the older black figure technique, which relied on incising lines through the black silhouette. You are not just decorating a pot, you are creating a narrative, a miniature masterpiece of graphic art, using nothing but refined mud and a steady hand. Let's rewind slightly to consider the earlier but still prevalent black figure technique. Imagine you're working 50 years earlier, around 490 BC. The process starts similarly. The pot is formed and dried to leather hard. You still sketch your design lightly onto the surface. Perhaps this time you choose a scene of warriors preparing for battle, arming themselves. But now, your approach with the special clay slip is different. You do not paint the background, you paint the figures themselves. Using a relatively thick slip, you create solid black silhouettes of the warriors, their shields, their helmets. The effect at this stage is quite stark. Flat black shapes against the reddish-orange clay. All the internal details are lost within the silhouette. This is where the next crucial step of black figure comes in, incision. Once the black slip has dried slightly, you take a sharp, pointed tool, perhaps made of bronze or bone, and you carefully incise lines through the black slip, revealing the lighter clay underneath. This is how you create the details. The eyes and mouths of the warriors, the intricate patterns on their armour, the musculature of their legs, the feathers on their helmet crests. It requires a different kind of skill than red figure painting. Your lines must be clean, precise, and confident. A shaky hand results in a wobbly line that cannot easily be hidden. You are essentially drawing by scratching. You might also add details using touches of accessory colour, typically white, made from a fine white clay slip, and a purplish red, made from iron oxide mixed with slip. These colours are painted over the black silhouette, often used for clothing details, hair or blood, though we keep it calm here, perhaps just decorative patterns. The white is particularly useful for depicting the skin of female figures, a common convention in black figure art. The finished black figure pot has a distinct graphic quality, more stylized and less naturalistic than red figure. The figures often appear like elegant shadow puppets against the warm clay background. It is a powerful and sophisticated art form, but its reliance on incision limits the complexity and fluidity of the lines you can create. Compare this to the red figure painter's ability to draw details directly with a brush, allowing for more variation in line weight and more subtle rendering of form. Both techniques require immense skill, but they represent different approaches to decorating the curved canvas of the pot, different ways of telling stories in black and red. You, as a craftsman working across these periods, might have needed to master both techniques, adapting your style to the demands of the market and the fashion of the time. Whether decorated in black figure or red figure, or left plain, the pots are now dry. Bone dry. They are incredibly fragile at this stage, brittle and easily broken. This is perhaps the most nerve-wracking phase of the entire process, loading the kiln. Your kiln, the keramos, is a large domed structure, probably built of brick and partially dug into the ground for insulation. It has two chambers, a lower firebox where the fuel, wood or charcoal, is burned, and an upper chamber where the pots are stacked, separated by a perforated floor that allows the heat to rise. Loading the kiln is a high-stakes game of three-dimensional Tetris. You must stack hundreds, perhaps thousands of pots of varying shapes and sizes into the upper chamber, packing them as tightly as possible to maximize the efficiency of the firing, but without letting them touch. If two pots touch during firing, they can fuse together, ruining both. You use small clay props, stilts and rings to separate the pieces. Larger pots form the base, smaller ones are nested inside or stacked carefully on top. It takes hours working in the cramped dark space, your movements slow and deliberate. A single clumsy move can send a stack of fragile bone-dry pots crashing to the floor. Once the kiln is loaded, the entrance to the upper chamber is sealed with temporary bricks and clay, leaving only small spy holes. The fire is lit in the lower chamber, and now begins the ordeal of the firing itself, a process that can take several days and requires constant vigilant attention. You, or your specialist fireman, must tend the fire day and night, gradually increasing the temperature. Too fast, and the pots will crack from thermal shock. Too slow, and the firing will be inefficient, wasting precious fuel. You judge the temperature not by a thermometer, but by the colour of the flames and the glow inside the kiln, viewed through the spy holes. A skill learned through years of experience and countless costly mistakes. For the famous black and red gloss of Attic pottery, a complex three-phase firing technique is used. First, the kiln reaches about 800 degrees Celsius with the vents open, creating an oxidizing atmosphere. This turns the entire pot and the slip decoration the reddish-orange colour of the clay. Second, the vents are closed, and green wood or damp sawdust is added to the fire. This creates a reducing atmosphere, full of carbon monoxide. The temperature is raised to about 950 degrees Celsius. In this smoky, oxygen-starved environment, both the pot and the slip turn black. The special iron-rich slip vitrifies, sintering into a glossy black surface. Third, the vents are reopened, allowing oxygen back in. The temperature is held around 900 degrees Celsius. The porous body of the pot reabsorbs oxygen and turns back to its original reddish-orange colour. But the sintered, vitrified slip is now sealed, unable to reabsorb oxygen, and remains a deep, glossy black. It is a remarkable feat of empirical chemistry, perfected over centuries, but it is also incredibly risky. A slight miscalculation in temperature or timing during any phase can result in a kiln full of misfired, discoloured, or broken pots. Weeks of work turned into worthless shards. After the final phase, the kiln must be allowed to cool slowly over several days. Opening it too soon will cause the pots to crack from the sudden change in temperature. The waiting is agonizing. You have invested weeks, perhaps months of labor and a small fortune in fuel into this single firing. Your livelihood depends on what lies inside. Finally, the day comes. You carefully remove the temporary brick door. You peer into the darkness. Slowly, carefully, you begin to unload the pots. Are they perfect, gleaming black and red? Or are they cracked, warped, smudged? It is the moment of truth, the potter's judgment day. A successful firing brings relief, satisfaction, and the promise of profit. A failed firing is a disaster that can push a small workshop to the brink of ruin. Your workshop is filled with the fruits of your latest firing. Stacks of amphorae lean against the wall, ready to be filled with wine or oil. Piles of kylixes await the next symposium. And your masterpiece, the large red figure crater depicting Dionysus, sits proudly on a stand, its glossy black background setting off the intricate details of the figures. Now comes the part of the job that requires a different kind of skill: selling your wares. You're not just an artist and a craftsman. You're a small businessman, navigating the competitive marketplace of ancient Athens. Some of your pottery is destined for the local market. You load up a small cart, or perhaps hire a porter, and take your pots to the Agora, the great central marketplace of Athens. Here, amidst the chaos of fishmongers, perfume sellers, and philosophers, you set up a temporary stall. You lay out your wares: simple cooking pots, oil lamps, drinking cups, plates. You haggle with housewives over the price of a storage jar. You chat with tavern keepers ordering a new set of cups. It is a noisy, bustling, and often frustrating business. Competition is fierce. There are dozens, perhaps hundreds, of other potters in Athens, all vying for the same customers. Quality matters, but so does price. You have to know the market, know what people need, and know how low you can go without ruining yourself. But the real money, the source of Athens' ceramic fame, is in the export market. Your finest pieces, like the Dionysus crater, are not meant for local housewives. They are luxury goods, destined for the wealthy elite across the Mediterranean and the Black Sea. Etruscans in Italy, Scythians in the north, colonists in Sicily, they all have a seemingly insatiable appetite for fine Athenian pottery. You do not handle this export trade yourself. You deal with merchants, the emperoi, shrewd middlemen who visit your workshop, inspect your latest firing, and negotiate bulk prices. These negotiations are tense. The merchant points out a tiny flaw in the glaze, a slight imperfection in the shape, trying to drive down the price. You defend the quality of your work, highlighting the skill of your painter, the complexity of the scene. You might have a long-standing relationship with certain merchants, built on trust and mutual profit. Or you might be dealing with a new buyer, requiring careful assessment of their creditworthiness. You might sell your pots outright, or you might agree on consignment, sharing the risk and the potential profit of the sea voyage. It's international commerce, Bronze Age style, complete with handshake deals and the ever-present risk of piracy or shipwreck. Your social status as a potter is ambiguous. You are a teknites, a craftsman. You work with your hands, which, in the eyes of the Athenian aristocracy, makes you inherently less noble than someone who lives off the income of their land. However, you are also producing objects of great beauty and high value. Some master potters and painters achieve considerable fame, their names signed proudly on their best pieces. They might become relatively wealthy, owning large workshops with many slaves and apprentices. You might even be a metikos, a resident alien, perhaps from Corinth or Ionia, drawn to Athens by the quality of its clay and the vibrancy of its market. Or you might be a full Athenian citizen, participating in the assembly, voting in elections, fulfilling your military duties when called upon. Your life is a mixture of humble, dirty labour and the creation of high art, a bridge between the world of commerce and the world of culture. Your day does not end when you leave the workshop. Your life is woven into the fabric of the Kerameikos community. You live nearby, perhaps in a simple 2-room house attached to your workshop. Your evening meal is modest. Barley bread, olives, some cheese, perhaps a little fish, washed down with watered wine. You spend time with your family. Your wife might be involved in the business, perhaps managing the accounts or helping with the less skilled tasks. Your children, if you have sons, are likely already learning the trade as apprentices in your workshop, ensuring the family business continues. The Kerameikos is a close-knit neighbourhood, a community of craftsmen who share the same challenges, the same rhythms of life dictated by clay and fire. You might gather with fellow potters in a local tavern in the evening, sharing news, complaining about the price of firewood, gossiping about the latest commission from a wealthy patron, or perhaps arguing about the merits of a rival workshop's new painter. There is competition, yes, but also a sense of shared identity, of belonging to a specific, skilled trade. You are all members of the Guild of Keramis, bound together by your common craft. Religion plays a quiet but constant role in your life. You might offer a small prayer to Athena again, the patron goddess of craftsmen, before starting a difficult pot on the wheel. You likely participate in the great city festivals, like the Panathenaia, honouring Athena Polias, the city's protector. Perhaps you even made the special Panathenaic amphorae, filled with sacred olive oil, that are given as prizes in the games, a prestigious and profitable commission. Your work is primarily secular, driven by the market, but it exists within a world where the favour of the gods is still considered essential for success, especially when dealing with something as unpredictable as a kiln firing. You look at your hands. They are permanently stained with clay, the lines etched deep with ingrained dirt. Your knuckles are perhaps swollen from years of kneading, your fingernails chipped and broken. They are not the hands of an artist in the modern sense, not the hands of a philosopher or a politician. They are the hands of a labourer, a maker, a man who transforms the base earth into objects of utility and sometimes of breathtaking beauty. Your contribution to the golden age of Athens is not measured in speeches or theorems, but in the countless thousands of pots, jars, cups and lamps that flowed from your workshop, essential vessels that carried the commerce, the culture, and the daily life of your civilization across the ancient world. You are an old man now. Your eyesight is failing from decades spent doing fine brushwork in dim light. Your lungs ache from years of breathing clay dust and kiln smoke. Your son now runs the workshop, his own hands stained with the same red clay that has marked your family for generations. You sit in the sun in your small courtyard, perhaps smoothing a simple, undecorated bowl, the feel of the cool clay still a comfort after all these years. You think back on your long life, the endless cycle of digging, kneading, throwing, painting, firing, selling, the triumphs of a perfect firing, the disasters of a collapsed kiln load, the competition with rival workshops, the pride in seeing your signed work displayed in a wealthy man's home or loaded onto a ship bound for Italy, You were not Pericles, not Socrates, not Phidias. You were Nikos, the potter, a face in the crowd of the agora. But your work has outlasted them all. The great temples of the Acropolis may one day crumble. The philosophical arguments may fade into obscure texts. But the humble objects you created, the vessels that held the wine, the oil, the water of ancient Athens, they will endure. Buried in tombs, lost in shipwrecks, discarded in ancient garbage heaps, fragments of your life's work will survive for millennia. They will become the clues, the evidence, the tangible connection through which future generations will seek to understand your world. The life of an Athenian potter was a testament to the quiet, essential labour that underpins all great civilizations. It was a life of extraordinary skill, blending artistry with chemistry, physical strength with delicate precision. It was a life governed by the unforgiving nature of the materials and the relentless demands of the market. The potter was not a celebrated hero, but his hands shaped the daily existence of his time, and the beautiful, enduring objects he created, scattered now in museums across the world, still speak to us, whispering stories of gods, heroes, and the simple, profound, and often brutal reality of life in the city that gave birth to democracy, and to some really quite exceptional pottery.